And they said, okay, why not? So
Mm.
they gave me 4 big challenges initially, but we said later on, oh, let's focus only on 2.
Yeah.
And the 2 were, can you help us to solve youth suicide in regional Australia? And the other one was, and it was quite a transformational type of experience for me, because I understood what it means for young people to be in regional Australia and the disadvantage they have. And that led me to understand what I want to do for the next 10 years to, make sure I do something meaningful and worthwhile. It ultimately basically cost me my business. And that was a hard lesson to learn. We found that our elders are one of those unutilized assets that can help us to educate our youngsters in essential life skills. This might be quite a challenging view, but I'm a little bit critical of, it's always smarter to have the paying customer, and raising funds is basically maybe to start scaling. Technology is a bad master but a good servant, and obviously AI has huge potentials to. The biggest existential threat to humanity is that we have Paleolithic emotions, reptilian brains, medieval institutions, and godlike technology. Look, we are constantly bombarded with challenges, and the change is the only constant in startup space. We had recently a older gentleman, his wife died 2 years prior. He came to it's always 2-hour session in a shopping center, and each half an hour is one-on-one. So one youngster's helping one senior. He stayed for the whole 2 hours because he didn't have anyone to talk to. He just wanted to have a chat. But equally, seniors help young people to have meaningful conversation and learn how to be patient, how to listen, how to slow down, hold eye contact, and gaining those essential life skills.
Just before we get started, if you're enjoying the podcast, can you please hit subscribe or follow? This helps me tremendously to grow my channel. Hi, Tony. Welcome to the podcast.
Okay, cool.
It's great to have you on. You're a person with a lot of experience in the startup space and doing some really good stuff at the moment with your startup youngster.co. But tell the audience a little bit more about yourself, how you got into the space and what you're doing currently.
Yeah, right. It's a long story, and I suppose quite a different one to, I suppose, some of the other guests, but in a way also similar. I like change. Change is the only constant, and I found through several full-time employment jobs that I'm just as happy or even happier to be self-employed and do my own venture. And running a internet service provider in regional Australia, to being a BDM for a learning management system company, to a communications carrier, led me to running an innovation hub on the North Coast. And through a project on this innovation hub with the local health district, addressing some of the big challenges we have in the regions, that led me ultimately to youngster.co.
Great. And so tell us a bit of the story behind youngster.co. So you said first it was like a bit of a competition. There was funding involved in the startup space that you're working or you are managing. So tell us about that story, and then some of the people that applied for that and who got that, and then how yours came about.
Mm-hmm. Just like many startups, you want to solve a problem and find a market that is willing to pay for the solution. And equally, when I was running the Innovation Hub, I also ran Startup Grind, and some of your guests like Alan Jones were part of it, and they were actually quite inspirational to me to listen to and learning from. And so through running this Innovation Hub, I was proposing to the local health district, why don't we run an open innovation challenge, where we address all of your big issues that you can't solve on your own, but you would benefit from having the community, especially the startup community, helping you. And they said, okay, why not? So they gave me 4 big challenges initially, but we said later on, let's focus only on 2.
Yeah.
And the 2 were, can you help us to solve youth suicide in regional Australia? And the other one was how we can address the smoking habits of Aboriginal women during and before and after pregnancy.
So they're
And,
2 massive and hugely important challenges.
big challenges, and not something that you can do, even in 6 months.
Nah.
But over the 6 months period running this project, we, looked for startups who are doing amazing things, who are willing to pitch their idea to a panel, and subsequently select top 3 as a finalist, and the number 1 would get funding and implementation across the Mid-North Coast, which ultimately happened. And it was quite a transformational type of experience for me, because I understood what it means for young people to be in regional Australia and the disadvantage they have. And one of the big challenges is technology. Technology can be very easy to adopt amongst the youngsters, and sometimes spend too much time on it. And that led me to understand what I want to do for the next 10 years to, make sure I do something meaningful and worthwhile.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And it's great to have that sort of purpose and such big challenges. So from that, your current company, Youngster.co, came about. So tell us a bit more about that and how they came. Well, that's the origin story. But so how does that work, and then who is it helping?
Yeah, so look, like you are, surrounding yourself with amazing minds, and I was doing the same, running Startup Grind, including Alan Jones, the nice one, who was one of my guests, including Naomi Simpson, Guy Kawasaki, big names. And they were all, like this nugget of gold that you actually can learn from and get so much insight. One of the key takeaways from Alan Jones was, look for those unutilized resources or assets. And we found that amongst our seniors, our elders. We found that our elders are one of those unutilized assets that can help us to educate our youngsters in essential life skills. And that's what Youngster.co is ultimately about creating the connection between the generations, where young people share their technology know-how and help seniors. But equally, seniors help young people to have meaningful conversation and learn how to be patient, how to listen, how to slow down, hold eye contact, and gaining those essential life skills.
Yeah, it's a perfect matchup, really, isn't it? And some societies, they really admire and they respect, the wisdom of the elders, so to speak. Even some like the Aboriginals as well. And in Australia, probably not so much. Some cultures, not as much as respected. I don't say to just respect just because they're older. But obviously, with age comes a lot of experience, a lot more wisdom as well for most elderly people, and that really needs to be passed on. And so, in this rapid-paced culture that we live in at the moment, where everything is 30-second videos or 10-second videos or 5-second videos, there needs to be a bit of balance. So I think it's a perfect balance there.
Yeah, and with the rise of AI. And look, there's an amazing quote from O.E. Wilson that the biggest existential threat to humanity is that we have Paleolithic emotions, reptilian brains, medieval institutions, and godlike technology. And that kind of his beautiful summary that was really popular through Tristan Harris from Center for Human Technology. And it really summarizes the challenges we have right now, that the technology is moving so fast that many are being left behind, especially our seniors. Rising scams, and it's not getting easier. Even government can't keep up to, address the challenges, especially AI is facing. And so I believe that programs like an intergenerational program, and there are many out there, are key to create more human connections. And to create more human connections, one of those remedies how we can address these existential threats through technology.
Yeah, absolutely. And like scams are rife. I mean, my beautiful mother who passed away about 6 months ago,
I'm
she
sorry
was
to hear that.
91. When she was 88, she was scammed like nearly all her life savings. So,
Wow.
and that happens a lot, and they're just not up to date with tech, even though she had a computer and she know how to do email and that sort of thing. That was probably worse knowing the basics, but there's so many scams out there that it is running right at the moment.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest challenges we have. Many seniors come to our free sessions that we host in public venues. So safety and security is number one priority to us. And many seniors come to our sessions, they just scared to even mention their name and their phone number when they want to register because they were scammed, or they are scared of being scammed.
Yeah.
And it's very hard for them to understand technology. They didn't grow up with it.
No.
And I think we have the middle-aged people, I'm 50, we have a very key role to play to be the connector between the younger generation and the seniors. Because we can be, the oldest sibling, and the oldest daughter or oldest son is the trusted person amongst the seniors. And we need to be the pathfinders for them. And often if you are not around, finding somebody you can trust and who is vetted, who can actually assist. But it's not very easy field to be in, but it's very rewarding when it's actually.
For all those who are out there, you will be a CEO one day as well.
Exactly. And, we all have limited time. We all going to die. And the younger generation, they just don't, they know it, but they just don't take it on.
Yeah.
I think the older we get, the more we are aware of it, that it's going to happen.
Yeah. What is the saying? No one gets out of your life. Yeah, it depends on the spiritual beliefs as well, I guess. So, like myself, some people believe that we keep existing in some form. But no, great work that you're doing. And I've seen lots of examples of even like preschools now. They go into nursing homes, old people's homes, and, there's a great connection between the two. So they help the elderly people, and, they help the young children in there. It's a really good match, and, we shouldn't be leaving our elderly people behind. So I think I really commend what you're doing, and also to help young people, like you just talked before about your suicide.
Yeah.
I had a guest, Rochelle Rich, and she had a suicide in her family, and now she's dedicating her whole business called Emotions to helping those, or she wants to see zero suicide rates. So she's working towards that with her business at the moment. So anything in that area is really commendable, and absolutely so needed.
Yeah, look, there's a lot happening in the suicide prevention, and Australian government is doing a lot. Lifeline is an amazing service.
Yeah.
And equally, the loneliness and isolation is a pandemic, and technology, unfortunately, is not helping it right now. There are some programs, they are doing amazing stuff, like Smiley Mind and so on, but they are, minority. And if you look at the impact of social media and, how misinformation, disinformation, polarization, it's actually not as social as they originally aimed to do. They have those platforms, but they are, not helping us to serve the humanity. And I think there should be more emphasis on how we can tap into this ethical mindset of people and create more platforms that are really truly helping and implement measures that are not beneficial to humanity.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because recently I interviewed Ravel, who is one of the founders of Twitter, and he is now working on a social media platform that is sort of somehow using a bit of the blockchain, but it's something that it isn't, its main purpose isn't just to monetize and make money. So it's to have
Yeah.
like a platform that everybody can share, ethical sort of platform. So I think we need a lot more of that because if you think about, the big social media platforms, it's just like one guy that has all this power, probably more power than a lot of governments around the world. And, how much wisdom and experience do they have? And usually it's just about making money and nothing else, unfortunately. So,
Yeah, unfortunately, the shareholder return is often the driving force. And no, I would love to have a chat to Mark Zuckerberg what
yeah,
legacy he wants to leave behind. So if you're taking the long-term view,
yeah,
Eric Ries has, this amazing startup or long-term stock exchange.
okay.
Eric Ries is the author of Lean Startup.
Uh-huh.
And so if you think about the long-term effects on us and how you can incentivize companies to actually think that way, ESG has certain elements that helps corporates to, be environmentally, socially responsible. And that's great. But if you have a organization that is aligned from set on to serve the humanity for the better, still for profit, just like social enterprises,
Yeah,
but
it's fine.
ultimately the aim is to actually serve the humanity. I
Yeah,
think it's much better way to think long-term benefits.
absolutely. If only our politicians would think more than 3 or 4 years ahead, long term,
Yeah, I think many do want to serve, but you're right. Um, there's always this short-term thinking because of the election cycles, and that's
Yeah,
very challenging.
yeah.
But yeah, I think ultimately they have the public service in mind and helping their constituents. But yeah, often it is a self-driven type of approach as well.
Yeah. And talking about challenges, this show is all about learning from failures.
Mm.
So all of us, we have those failures, we have problems along the way. So could you recount maybe one of your biggest failures in startup world and tell us, how it came about, what happened, and then what you did to try and resolve that and what you
Yeah,
learned from that?
look, we are constantly bombarded with challenges, and the change is the only constant in startup space.
Yeah.
And I learned very early. I had an internet service provider business in regional Australia, and I tried to help also residents as well as businesses. And I found that if I focus on the residents, it just swallowed my profits and all my customers went out the window, but not out the window, but all the profits went into the customer service. And there was a big challenge. I sold the business. It was not hugely profitable, but I learned a lot. I was running it for about 7, 8 years. But I learned a lot of troubleshooting, and often that's actually maybe one of those elements where I learned how important it is to try to help, but maybe there's a different way to help. So for example, when I was called out to help a senior and they didn't know how to plug a power cable into the modem, I plugged it in and it worked. I felt bad charging them a call out fee because it was just so simple. And I could see that senior was a retiree, they were not able to afford it. And sometimes I didn't charge. And it ultimately basically cost me my business. And that was a hard lesson to learn. But if we have a local youngster who is 5 kilometers nearby, and maybe for half the price or less the price, we can actually get him to go and help the senior, and both of them are able to get what they wanted, and it doesn't cost too much. Maybe there's a way to address those challenges as well. And maybe because I like to solve problems. I don't like to give up. That was one of the things that was still in my mind from that experience that helped me to set up youngster.co.
Yeah, I've heard that like when you're doing a startup, you really got to work out, who your customers are, and also are they able to pay for your services? And sometimes, although you have in mind to help a certain area, you might have to start with another customer segment to get that traction to then be able to help that other area that's more important to you, because you do need to make a profit as well to be able to continue, obviously.
100%. And this might be quite a challenging view, but I'm a little bit critical of, there's quite a hype around raising funds, raising rounds, and I don't think it's for everyone. And if we have time, I always like to bootstrap the business and see if the customer is willing to pay for it. And, show traction in a real sense. There is real figures, real money coming in rather than, like a hypothetical. And, it's sometimes, challenging, but I think people like Alan Joss would potentially agree to, it's always smarter to have the paying customer, and raising funds is basically maybe to start scaling, and you really need to show the traction in some way.
Yeah, he did actually say that. First of all, he would prefer bootstrapping, but then if you can't, or for different circumstances. But let's say, for example, on my startup, we bootstrapped. So starting in 2017 in the VR space, it was 360 video VR, very early days. I came from education, a film background, and my co-founder from education background. So none of us from sales or marketing or tech either. I did have a basic understanding of tech, just some basic programming, that sort of thing. So I guess for that, it wasn't really ideal. But so coming in, we actually got a Ukraine developer because we couldn't do what we wanted to do on the current tech that was there. He said, no, I can build a platform for you in 6 weeks and then 3 hours per scenario. So, 4 years later, $700,000, worth of, input into the building that tech and having all these different developers. So we end up having developers here and then one overseas as well, but mainly here. And then it was quite a long time to do all of that. And also, we probably didn't put enough money into sales and marketing. So everyone said, look, you are the founder. You have to be the salesperson. You're the best person to sell. But what if I'm not really good at selling? I did some basic sales courses. I tried my hardest, probably didn't get out there to, sometimes I felt a bit intimidated to get to like top CEOs of big companies. But in the end, I didn't. But even so, we came really close. We had COVID. We had all of that. But looking back, I think, if we had got a funding round and then put a whole lot of money into sales and marketing, which other companies that came way later than us did, doing the same thing and really took off, then I think each case is different. But we always said, no, bootstrapping is the best. But now I think, was it really, or could we have done better with funding? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a good thought. I really like the statement from, I don't know, maybe Rohit's podcast. He interviewed someone who said we raised the funds, and I decided, because I couldn't sleep on it, to actually not accept it, because I was not convinced that we can pay it back and return. So it's ultimately, can you actually get the money from the market with return and pay it back to the investor? The investor wants to be paid first.
Yeah.
And it's just like taking a loan on a house or taking a loan. And I just like owing things. I own my own house and I don't have any debt at all. And I prefer that. I just can sleep much better. And maybe it's coming from, being a father of 4 and need to care for people. But I just don't want to have any sleeping debts somewhere out there.
Yeah. Well, but
I totally get where you're coming from.
Yeah, because some startups just don't have that sort of money to bootstrap themselves anyway. And everyone used to say, look, if you get enough traction with customers, then you can bid investor with any. If I get enough traction with customers, why do I want
Why?
investment? So that's why I just went after getting the traction with customers, but unfortunately didn't really succeed with that.
So one of the challenging things is also if you get too many customers and too many customers who are not as profitable, to say no to customers. So we get a lot of inquiries, and sometimes it's very hard to say no to many. We have found an interesting approach with shopping centers. Shopping centers seems to be really liking our approach, not only because we help the community, connect with the community, but we also address some really big need amongst the shoppers. So let's say if you have the telco shops just stopped, just Vodafone, often they get a lot of people coming in asking for basic things like, can you help me to set up an email or an Apple ID and things like that. Obviously, they often want to help, but they just don't have the time or resources to help. So it's a great opportunity for us to step in and assist. And equally, JD Hi-Fi sells something, and we can help the customer to configure the phone and things like that, or Apple Watch. And so it seems to be like a great symbiotic relationship, not only with the shopping centers, but also with the tenants of the shopping centers. And so technology is just moving so fast that many people are still being left behind. And if you can create more jobs, especially in regional Australia, and especially with youngsters who often are disengaged and are different ethnic backgrounds, speaking different languages, refugee backgrounds. For us, we found different languages are actually an asset. We actively asking what languages they speak, so we can actually assign them a job where this India only speaks certain language as well. So it's a real benefit to have this multicultural society like we have in Australia.
Yeah, absolutely. Some elderly people, they'll come over here, someone's parents, and then, like my father-in-law, he was from Argentina, and he didn't really speak much English at all, and he really struggled. So having something like that would be really helpful, because it's really hard to learn another language when you're in your 80s. So,
but it's also about having a chat. We had recently a older gentleman, his wife died 2 years prior. He came to it's always 2 hour session in a shopping center, and each half an hour is one-on-one. So one youngster's helping one senior. He stayed for the whole 2 hours because he didn't have anyone to talk to. He just wanted to have a chat. And that's totally fine, absolutely fine. And we encourage the youngsters to do so when there is time. Often we have queues of people lining up because it makes it challenging. But if they have time, obviously, we totally encourage, because it's ultimately about creating this human connection.
Yeah, so many things happening there. You're helping with the tech. You're probably helping young people communicate better instead of being on the phone all day as well, and solving that whole alias thing, which they say is the number one killer now. And
but also something basic things like turning up on time and turning up with a clean shirt and look people in the eye. So customer service skills, some youngsters lacking, some are really good at engaging. And we try to pair up the more engaging youngsters with the more tech-savvy youngsters who are more introverted, but they're really good with tech.
Yeah.
Ultimately, they learn from each other. And so we measuring basically how well they improve over a period of time. And it's amazing to see the transformation amongst youngsters. And often they get jobs in the shopping center or nearby or aged care facility. Many of the youngsters who are tech-savvy wouldn't even consider to go into aged care. And there's a big need amongst tech-savvy youngsters to go into, service space.
Yeah, absolutely. That whole sector is having major issues with staffing and that sort of thing. So, and having caring people in the sector is really important. All right. Well, so you're obviously you've been an entrepreneur for a long time. So why or how did you become an entrepreneur? Like, do you think it's something happened in your childhood or, in the formative years, or did it happen later? Or do you think you've always been like that? I always find this question interesting because I know I've always been that way, but, we were talking before the podcast, you like constant change as well. But yeah, so how did you become an entrepreneur? Why did you become an entrepreneur?
Yeah, maybe it's the part that you like challenges and you like solving problems. And I've got an engineering background. I've got a master's in civil engineering, but I didn't actually use it that much. I was always in sales and business development. I was born in Czechoslovakia. I moved to Germany when I was 12 and had to learn German. My mum died when I was quite young in Czechoslovakia. My father emigrated. He left
So how old
Czechoslovakia.
were you? How old were you?
I was 10, 11-ish when my mum died, and my
You
father,
must
he
be
left the
really young.
country illegally prior to that. So my brother and I, we stayed on our own he's 1 year older than me, and we stayed in Slovakia. And 1 year later, we were allowed to leave, it was still socialism, to Germany where my father lived. He
So how
emigrated
when
to
you were in
Germany.
Slovakia, you're a 10 and 11-year-old. Where were you staying and what was going on there?
Yeah, that was very interesting. So the first 3 months we stayed in our flat. We had like a high-rise building flat,
Uh-huh.
and we had to go and shop. We had from the authorities, we had neighbor appointed to look after us from here and there to make sure that we are okay. And I think 3 months down the track, my grandma moved in with us for 10 months, and that helped us. But yeah, ultimately or my brother decided to go to Germany, even though it was, big no to go to Germany from all the teachers. They say you shouldn't go. There's high unemployment. There's Nazis, whatever. It was not true. It was, they were totally intrigued by the Socialist Communist Party to convince us not to go.
And
And
what
but
year was
my
that? What year was that you
it
went to
was
Germany?
83,
Okay. Is that when did the wall come down around that time in Germany?
89. Yeah, it's
Okay.
like a few years later. Yeah, the
Yeah.
wall came down, and
So who were you living
um,
with in Germany?
yeah, we went to live with my dad in a Frankfurt area. We had one bedroom unit, and so three
Yeah.
guys lived together in one
Mhm.
bedroom unit,
Yeah.
and it was amazing. So I went to school. I had to start basic school level. There are like 3 levels. And I had to learn German. And then my maths and physics were really, really good, but my German was non-existent. My English was non-existent, which is compulsory. So I was just sitting around and listening, didn't understand what English is. but but when I was 18, I decided English is something I have to learn, and I put myself into a language school um, in London, in Twickenham, and
Yeah.
so I learned to speak English when I was 18.
So you moved from Germany to London when you were 18?
No, so I went through the school system in holidays. I went for 3 weeks here and there to learn English in the host family and in the language school in London. And yeah, then I went on to high school, and it was very challenging because they said with your German and your English, you can't go to university because you're just not good enough. But then I had a really amazing math teacher, and he said, "Your maths and physics are just amazing. You should go into something technical." And so I did. And I applied, and I got accepted. And I got my master's in civil engineering. And it was, to have teachers like that are inspirational. And I still remember we had math lesson, and he took a whole classroom, and he showed us how an engine in a car works, how you change oil, and where how you service it. And it was the best lesson ever.
Yeah.
And I think these hands-on practical things that
Uh,
really, that really inspired me to be useful, like Arnold Schwarzenegger's new book says, be useful.
Isn't it amazing how a teacher can make a huge difference in a person's life? That positive. See how you remembered that exact lesson, even that
Mm.
lesson, and that's so many years later now. Who knows, like 30 years, whatever it might be. And you remember that lesson. Like I remember one or two teachers as well that were really inspiring, and that they just thought you get through, the hard times, and probably change the direction of your life, saying, no, you can do it.
100%.
You can
Yeah.
do it. Yeah. So,
Yeah, believe in you. And yeah, you're spot on. Um, Look, we also in our family we had lots of challenges, and I've got now 4 amazing kids. 2 years ago, my father-in-law also committed suicide, and he was scammed, and there was health complications, and he was a high achiever. He was incredibly smart. Um, he done very well in his life, but he found that there's no need for him, I think, and it was his own way of go. He was talking about for the last 10 years, but I found that there's a lot of loneliness and isolation, especially amongst old men, and they don't realize they benefit, especially to the younger people. So if you can inspire those older people to stay with us and teach teach the other youngsters, it is worthwhile, and the gift that they have and bring, and they all have something amazing in themselves, and just need to trigger it, and so it comes to life. And I think that's why maybe the intergenerational part is so important, to activate not only the youngsters but also the seniors to be part of it.
yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of lonely seniors out there, and in nursing homes or not, or in their own home. And I
Yeah.
think the work you're doing is really, really important. And just talking on the whole mental health side of things, as you know, our startups are pretty grueling, and there is a need to maintain our own mental health. And there's some philosophies out there. It's just work like crazy, do 100 hours a week, and and most people that do that get burned out. But how do you personally, what do you do for your own mental health and to maintain a balance?
Yeah, I've got a puppy. No, I could show her to you, but
Yeah.
what I really love is being out there on the ocean and kayak fishing. And when you're out there, the elements that is always different. It changes all the time. There's whales going past, dolphins, sharks, and you catch fish, and you have exercise. So exercise and be out there. Um, Especially the ocean is just my heaven. I just love it.
Wow.
And yeah, it's just when you see the life around you, like a few days ago, the whole ocean is just full of baitfish right now. It's just boiling everywhere. And when you're just amongst that and in the middle of it, and you can see it happening, fish jumping everywhere, it's just life. And all the problems you have in your startup just totally are minute. You just don't think about it. So you just kind of like have totally different space that you can go to and find a refuge and get your energy back to jump on the podcast and help other 2,000 youngsters to find jobs.
Yeah, yeah, it's awesome. Being outdoors is fantastic. Like I go bike riding, that really helps me. Like every Saturday, I really look forward to it. Then I meet up with some friends and we chat for hours and hours. Having that social contact is really important, especially if you work from
Yeah.
home as well. But
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
you're in an amazing part of the world, seeing the whales, not so much the sharks. I went for a holiday years ago, and I went to Magnetic Island for the day, off Townsville, and there was like a beach there, and I was with my daughter; she was 10, so they had kayaks there. Said to the guy, "There's no sharks. There's no, sorry, crocodiles." Because someone said there's crocodiles. I said, "No, there's no crocodiles. The sharks ate them all." I was like, "Oh, okay." So we went paddling, and then the rocks, they look really funny. Like you could have a crocodile could sort of hide on those rocks. My daughter said, "Crocodile," and then, I tell you, I was paddling so fast you could water speed behind that kayak,
I had the same or similar experience. I was followed by a tiger shark, and the tiger shark was bigger than my kayak. My
Wow.
kayak is 5 meter long, and it
Wow.
was big.
Ooh.
And then I decided to go under my kayak, and I could see the girth from both sides of the kayak. And you realize how small you are, and like your arm, my heart was up here, and I was just
Yeah.
pedaling like hell. And yeah, and it's just only 200 meters off the beach. It's not very far. Yeah, so you do get your experiences that get your heart pumping.
Yeah, that'll give you some motivation, all right? Yeah.
You feel
Awesome.
alive. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
absolutely. All right. Well, so with all your experience and also working at, incubators and that sort of space, what are some of the main sort of themes or advice that you could give, say, early stage startup founders that are just getting going, they haven't got a lot of experience? What sort of advice would you give them?
I think tapping into their own talents. There's something called the Napkin Test. Have you heard of the Napkin Test?
I think so. Just remind me.
So it's very basic. You can do on the back of an envelope or
Yeah.
napkin in
Hmm.
America, and it's basically to understand what are your gifts, what are you really naturally good at, and what other people think that your gifts are. So
Mm.
your nearest friends.
Yeah.
But also, what is your calling? So not only your gift, like if you're good at sales or good at interacting with people and or good with technology, but what is your calling? Where do you find inspiration that you wake up in the morning and you want to do it? So if I had the choice, I would love to do maybe a startup in carpet fishing. But at the same time, I'm also pragmatic. I want to see something meaningful, something of use to others. So helping others to helping yourself. And I was amazed. My um, mentor, my father-in-law, who passed away, he was always keen to give back and help others, and and work hard. He was working so hard, and there are just those elements. And one of the best thing is to surround yourself with people you want to be surrounded by, and don't think locally, think globally. So when I want to be surrounded by other people like Naomi Simpson, Guy Kawasaki, who are really amazing people, I thought, how can I make it happen? And Startup Grind came up and I've made it happen. So the only chapter in regional Australia, and we were able to host these amazing people like Alan Jones. And I was just so privileged to spend some time with those guys.
Yeah. Also, going back to mental health, helping others as well is really important for mental health as well. If we only think about ourselves, then we're never really going to feel good. That's why you might be a startup founder that's a unicorn, you've got billions of dollars, you're sitting there in your palace or whatever, and you could be miserable. Like, if you're just thinking about yourself. And then I actually heard yesterday somebody talking about the people that win the lotteries, nearly all of them end up miserable because they'll live their job, they'll buy the big house, the car, this, and after a while it's like buy, and this, and then they're just like life hasn't got much meaning or purpose. So I know that the stats are after 10 years, they all lose all their money. And a lot of them end up being miserable. So,
Yeah. Look, I think one of the key lessons here is to, helping others and be useful. It's kind of like a life motto. And there was a really good book I read from Simon Sinek called Infinite Game. And think about life as an infinite game that it depends what legacy we want to leave behind. Do we want to leave a castle or expensive car behind, which we can't take with us anyway? Or do we want to leave a legacy that people will remember?
Exactly.
And think about, Paul King, he did this amazing podcast and he captured those amazing stories. And it was just really worth listening to. How amazing was that? And, if you can think about 10x about that, the most amazing, I would love to be interviewing Arnold Schwarzenegger if I were you. I would love to be there. Maybe I'll
If you
invite
have
him.
any connections, can you ask him to come on my show?
Well, he was born in Austria, in
Yeah.
around Graz, and we have quite a lot of similarities from the background
Yeah.
perspective, and maybe similar accent. And but I understand where he's coming from because a similar background when I grew up was also around me, and where I grew up was 80 kilometers north of Vienna,
All
and so similar cuisine, I suppose, Wiener Schnitzel,
right.
and Knödel and so on. And I would love to interview him. I just read this book and I like it. Very simple, straight to the point,
Yeah.
no mucking around, just like the Germans.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Yeah, love it. Actually, I think you should invite him.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to get him on. I really admire him as well. He's done a lot of good stuff lately as well, you know. So, yeah,
Yeah. My so one of the other things that I really appreciate is to have amazing people close to you. And one of the amazing person is my son, Finn, and my other kids, James, Yana, and Sienna. And they inspire me every day. Finn is the co-founder of Youngster.co. He is the
that's awesome.
CTO, and he inspires me a lot, and he makes me a better person. He put time limit on my social media consumption. I've got 25 minutes a day, and thanks, Finn. But yeah, he's got this ethical mindset in him, and to have somebody like that to be partnering with you, it's just a gift, and I'm just very lucky.
Absolutely, and being your son as well. You know, that whole thing around social media, people got social media and AI as well. I mean, our pre-chat, we were talking a bit about that and how, you know, it could be used in different ways. It could be a massive threat to the world, but it can also be something that can bring a lot of benefits as well. So what are your thoughts around that? What sort of benefits do you think it can bring, and what sort of threats do you see it having?
Yeah. Look, we could talk about it, a whole podcast just around that. I'm a big fan of the work that Tristan Eris and Azar Raskin are doing for Center for Human Technology. Um, Technology is a bad master, but a good servant. And obviously, AI has huge potentials to help us to solve cancer and incurable diseases and that with climate change and so on. But ultimately, it's not going to be helpful if it is a threat to humanity. I think there's a lot we can do, and we need to create more programs where we create more human connections to address the existential threat of AI. So in order to create more human connections, we need to, incentivize companies to think ethically that is for better of humanity. And that includes especially the big tech companies who, Facebook, I think over 2 billion members or users, much bigger than any industry or not industry, any country in the world. So they can move the whole world, and with the small changes in the user interface, they can make big changes. They can make huge advancements to the humanity. They just need to convince the shareholders that it's for the better in the long term. And I think because of the shareholder return, they are less likely to, the short-term return, they are less likely to adopt those changes that are beneficial to humanity and not their shareholders.
Yeah,
So how to incentivize them? Create more programs that emphasize the importance of a human connection, that we want to, leave behind a legacy that the next generation, will prosper and will benefit from.
what's next? What's next for you?
Well, I'm flying to New Zealand in a couple of days, and we would love to expand to New Zealand, so we're going to check it out.
Yep.
We currently working on some communities, especially the Christmas Island, Cobra Stealing Island community, where we can assist individual communities. And a big part of our program is to also help Aboriginal communities, especially Aboriginal elders, to connect with the youngsters and make sure that they're leaving the stories with the youngsters. I found that our program hasn't impacted those communities as much as we could. So that's on the short horizon. That's what we're working on right now.
Awesome. And so the last question I'll leave you with is, what's a question no one's ever asked you, but you wish they had?
I'm a big fan of recycling.
Okay.
And I I still continue building things in my backyard. And I've got a shipping container in the backyard that I converted into 2-bedroom unit. And believe it or not, somebody from Christchurch asked me for the plants to use after the earthquake in Christchurch. And so I'm actually flying to Christchurch on Thursday. I'm looking forward to see some of those containers being built and if they adopted some of the plants. So I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you so much for being on today and sharing your knowledge and your story. I'm sure it'll be valuable to many early stage startup founders.
Thanks, Paul, for the opportunity. It was great and loved the conversation. Keep it up.
Yeah, thank you.